So we have cancelling fractions. Okay. Now the reason that people sometimes have problems with cancelling fractions is because they don't know their multiplication tables. Okay. If you can't multiply, then you can't divide. One goes hand in hand with the other. But anyway, we'll still do this, and once you know your tables, you'll be fine. So if we've got a circle here, now I've divided it into 4, so I know that this is a quarter, this is a quarter, and so on. Now I know that a quarter plus a quarter gives me 1/2 of the circle. So that's 2/4. Okay, this is how we would write 2/4. And I know 2/4 is the same as 1/2. Okay. Now 2/4 is right, but it can be righter. Now we do this by cancelling down the fractions. So 2 I know goes into 2 once, and 2 goes into 4 twice. So this is how we get the half. Okay. So for example, if I've got 6/8, now when I'm cancelling, what I'm doing is seeing is there a number that will go into the top and the bottom. Okay. Now I know 2 will go into 6 3 times. I know 2 will go into 8 4 times. So 6/8 is exactly the same as 3/4. Okay. Now what people try to do is do it too quickly. So for example, if we've got 16/24, okay. Now I know 8 goes into 16, I know 8 goes into 24, okay. But supposing you couldn't see that, well, if you just look at the numbers, both numbers are even. If they're both even, they can both be divided by 2. So we can just divide by 2. So 2 into 16 goes 8, and 2's into 24 goes 12. So I'm left with 8/12. Now I know that 4 goes into 8, I know that 4 goes into 12. But supposing you can't see that, well, both numbers are even, so they can both be divided by 2. So 2's into 8 goes 4, and 2's into 12 goes 6. So I'm left with 4/6. Now I know 2 will go into both of these numbers because they're both even. So 2's into 4 goes 2, and 2's into 6 goes 3. So I'm left with 2/3. Okay. Now I can't divide anything into 2 and 3, so this would be my final answer. Okay. So even if you're a bit iffy with your multiplication tables, use numbers that you know will work, because this shows you that you will get there eventually anyway. Okay, maths is not a race, so take your time. It's better to work slowly and get it right than go, well, I think it's 9, and then be wrong. Okay. Now there are numbers that we know automatically by instinct. So for example, if I've got 30/40 and I said, okay, well, what's the first number that comes into your head that will divide into 30 and 40? you'll probably say it's 10. Okay, that's fine. Okay, 10's into 30 goes 3, 10's into 40 goes 4. Okay, now we could have done it this way, dividing by 2, and we still would have got there, only it would have taken a little bit longer. But because you know that anything that ends in 0 is divisible by 10, we can cancel down quicker. Okay, so for example, if we've got 25 over 30, okay, now we know 10 won't go into both because they don't end in 0. So what do we know about numbers that end in 5 and 0? Well, we know that they must be divisible by 5, because if you look at your 5 times table, okay, 5 5s are 25, 6 5s are 30, 5 5s, 5 7s are 35. So each number ends in 5 or 0. So 5s into 25 goes 5, and 5s into 30 goes 6. So we have 5 over 6. So we can see if the numbers are even, and we can't think of anything else to divide by, we can divide by 2. If the numbers end in 0, we can see that the numbers can be divided by 10. If the numbers end in 5 and or 0, we know that they can be divided by 5. So this helps us divide a lot quicker. Okay. Now something that you may not know is if I have 21 over 81, now I know that I can't divide by 5 because both numbers end in 1. Neither numbers are even, so I can't divide by 2. Neither numbers end in 0, so I can't divide by 10. But what you can do is this. If I add 2 and 1 together, so I just add these two numbers together, 2 and 1 gives me 3. 8 plus 1 gives me 9. Okay, now does 3 go into 3? Well, yes, we know it does. Does 3 go into 9? Well, yes, we know it does. So if 3 goes into 3 and 9, 3 will go into 21 and 3 will go into 81. Okay, so just to prove it, 3's into 21 is 7. Now 3's into 81, if you like, we'll do a little division sum here. So we have 81. 3's into 8 goes 2, remainder 2, and 3's into 21 we just did is 7. So I get 27. So this will always work. So if I've got 123, so 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 3 is 6. I know 3 goes into 6, so I know 3 will go into this number. Okay, this always works. So when we get 7 over 27, I know 5 won't go into these, I know 10 won't go into these, I know 2 won't go into these, and I know 3 won't go into these. Okay, 7 plus 2 is 9, but here 7 is not divisible by 3, so I can't go any further. So that will be my final answer. Okay, so this little trick with 3's is worth remembering. Okay, now sometimes we have something called a mixed number. Okay, so this would be something like 1 1/4, okay, or 2 3/5. This is a mixed number, it's part number, part fraction. Now we also have something called improper fractions. Now improper fractions are something like 5 over 4, okay, or 7 over 3. Now they're what we call top heavy fractions. The top number is bigger than the smaller number, the lower number. Okay, 5 is bigger than 4, 7 is bigger than 3. So we can make these into whole numbers, or whole numbers with the fraction, so we can turn them into mixed numbers. So 5 over 4, what we're saying here is we have 5 quarters. Now I know 4 quarters here gives me 1 whole one. But if I've got 5 quarters, then I must have 1 whole one with 1 quarter left over. I'm hoping that this makes sense to you. Now the quick way is just to divide the bottom number into the top. So 4 goes into 5 once, that tells me how many whole ones we have, and I'll have 1 left over, so I'll have 1 quarter left over. So if I have 7 over 3, 3 goes into 7 2, so we have 2 whole ones, and we have 1 left over, so we have 1 of these thirds left over. Okay, it's as easy as that. So if we have 15 over 7, now 7 goes into 15 twice, and I have 1 left over. So I have 1/7 left over. Okay, so if I have one more, so let's say I've got 23 over 6. Now I know 6 goes into 23 3 times, because 3 6s are 18, and that leaves me 5 left over. So I've got 5 of these 6 left over. Okay, so we've gone from an improper fraction to a mixed number. Okay, examiners tend not to like this too much. They like this simplified. They call this simplifying. Okay, so I hope this helps. So whenever we have fractions, we always try and take them down to its simplest form, and sometimes you can get an improper fraction, or what we call a top heavy fraction, and then we can turn that into a mixed number. Okay, so again, this is just practice.